Good morning, good morning, good morning. You can tell I was just back there sitting on the couch hanging out before we hopped on here. But everyone, welcome. Today is what? March 12th, 2024. Welcome to the pre-market prep session for today. And we've got inflation data coming out, which will be, the talk of the town, no doubt. So that'll probably be the mainline piece of information. Yesterday's, prediction ended up coming through with a whole lot of chop, a lot of nothing burger type candles, doji type candles. We're closing roughly where we opened. Let me look and make sure that we're not. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. Awesome. I appreciate that. We end up closing roughly where we opened. So that those days are important, right? Understanding which days are going to be chopped, which days when you're not really looking to do a whole lot. Those are the days to keep your account afloat because it's really overdoing. You're supposed to sit still. It's the biggest risk to your account not being in the wrong position at the wrong time, or you picking the wrong direction. It's really you just being in positions when it's not a point to be in positions. So welcome to today, right? Let's see what the market has for us. We've got the majority of the week ahead of us. It is only Tuesday. So each day we're looking to get 1% better. Being here for this session is an active component of that. But we've got a lot of time, right, left in the week. So, if you had a crappy Monday, your boss, was an a-hole and everything else, you still got 4 out of 5 weekdays in order to make this, a week worth giving praise to. Right. So even if yesterday was crap, make sure you've got your eyes toward today and all the opportunities they can afford. And let's focus on that, because all we can do is control what we can control. Right. So let's do that each and every day. Our top news here: inflation check. Are things still hot? Investors will find out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. By the way, make sure you ones in the chat signifying your intention to get 1% better. We want to set our intention always. Otherwise, what are we doing? We're just here swimming around like jellyfish aimlessly. We want to go somewhere. We want to be there with intention, and we want to accomplish goals. So investors will find out. They already have, right? This just came out before the 8:30 a.m. mark. February's inflation report. So that's especially important as it will be one of the last major tests before Fed policymakers gather next week to decide on monetary policy. The latest reading will also arrive after a hotter than expected report from January showed that the central bank's inflation fight might be bumpy, with consumer prices rising by the most in 8 months. Now, by the numbers, economists on average see February CPI rising 0.4% from a month ago, up from January's 0.3% increase. On a year-over-year basis, the index is expected to advance 3.1%, unchanged from the previous month's print, but still above the Fed's 2% goal. Interestingly, things are looking slightly better on the core front. When stripping out food and energy prices, the CPI consensus expects to see an increase of 0.3% month over month, easing from 0.4% in January. Core inflation is anticipated to rise 3.7% year over year versus 3.9% in January. So in his last appearance, Fed Chair Jerome Powell testified before the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs that the central bank is not far from being ready to make rate cut decisions. Rate reductions. There we go. That also doesn't mean that a rate cut is within reach, and it could take until the summer for FOMC to shift into easing mode. Incoming CPI data today may also help modify the current go slow approach and could show up in the next dot plot, which will be published next week in the Fed's summary of economic projections. So in terms of commentary, while Jerome Powell was quite dovish in his latest testimony in Congress, Mr. Market's rate cut optimism would look premature if CPI and PPI reports show inflation getting sticky well above the Fed's target rate of 2%. That's a quote from Investing Group leader Ahan Vashi. Quote, with financial conditions loosening significantly in recent weeks, risk assets have broken out to new highs. However, stretched valuations and overextended technicals dictate that any negative surprises can lead to a sharp pullback. It's a fancy way of saying we've been going up, and anything negative can bring us down significantly. Right? That's not me saying that. That's just, kind of a translation of what that means here. Now, let's see what we got here in terms of CPI data. Okay. Okay, so US CPI month over month, actual 0.4% versus 0.3%, estimated 0.4%. So that's US CPI year over year, 3.2%, estimated 3.1%. So that came in a little bit hotter year over year, 0.1% hotter than what we were expecting. And then core CPI actual was 0.3, 0.4%, estimated was 0.3. So it looks like overall the numbers came in, and then core CPI year over year was 3.8%, estimated was 3.7%. So overall, it looks like numbers either came in line or slightly hotter than expected. Not really surprising, given that the inflation data that we just got from overseas as well came in a little bit hot. But it doesn't look like the market is reacting to it negatively. I don't have Thinkorswim up, but just looking through these notifications here, looks like the stock index futures extend gains. Nasdaq futures up 0.79, S&P mini futures up 0.6, Dow futures up 0.28. So we'll see if that holds. But that again underscores the importance of understanding that it is always going to be how the market reacts to the data, not necessarily the data. Because it looks like the market like this data, right? At least for now. We don't know. It could be a false pop. So we've got to get in there, check out the technicals, and see. But at least for now, the market is reacting to data that is pretty much in line with expectations / slightly worse than what was expected. And we didn't get an immediate drop. Same thing happened last time, right? I believe last time we got inflation data, it was like weird. It was like in line / a little bit worse than expected, and the market still went up. So it's like you don't ever want to see data and go, oh, because of this will happen. You want to say, okay, this data came out. How is the market reacting, right? Because I'm not going to pretend to know how each and every market reaction plays out in terms of why something does what it does. And you know what you do? Trying to figure that out, blow a gasket, right? Leave that to AI whenever it gets to the point where it can, do that. But for right now, all you're doing is going through theoreticals. And at the end of the day, what does it matter? All that matters is the end result. So you want to know the data is coming. And then, if you have a good idea or a good theory about the data, then maybe you could place a trade in that direction, but make sure you're managing risk. But overall, all you can do is be aware that this thing is coming and then deal with the aftermath, right? It's kind of like a tornado, right? You don't look to really predict it or anything like that. You don't look to draw a reason from it. There's 1,000 different reasons why, your house ended up on top of someone else's house. There's no reason to try and walk through it. It's just that you knew a tornado was coming. Now you deal with the aftermath, right? It's the same thing with this data. Because whenever you try and do that with earnings or with data that's coming out, all you do is use up all your mental capital and you just end up spent, right? You do like 3 hours of research on earnings, and what you think happened, happens, and the stock still goes the wrong way, and you're like, you're just spent. So I prefer to just let the data happen and then figure out, what you're going to do in its aftermath. But as of right now, market looking like it likes that information, at least for now. We'll see if that continues or not, because I'm also not the type to be fooled just by an initial move, right? We've had inflation data before where we gap up and then we spend the whole day falling, filling in that gap. So not putting it off as good or bad right now definitively, because we won't know until we get that ding, ding, ding. In terms of consumer news, camera ban. Facing flack for hidden cameras over the years, Airbnb is barring the devices from being placed indoors. The new rules will apply to listings globally starting April 30th and include common areas like hallways and living rooms. Quote, these changes were made in consultation with our guests, hosts, and privacy experts, and will continue to seek feedback to ensure our policies work, said Juniper Downs, Airbnb's head of community policy and partnerships. More comprehensive rules will apply to outdoor security cameras as well as other guidelines for things like decibel monitors. Yeah, I mean, people are throwing all these parties in Airbnbs and destroying them. I feel like it's something that is necessary, having some kind of way to monitor that. But also, you should not be having cameras all inside of your Airbnb because you're just a creep, right? You're not on security reasons. You just want to see what I look like when I take this vest off. Sure, go ahead and abide by those guidelines. Get your fix somewhere else. All jokes aside, though, moving on to cryptocurrency, up and away as Bitcoin continues to scale new heights. Michael Saylor, co-founder and former CEO of MicroStrategy, believes the top currency is going to eat gold. Bitcoin, quote, has all the great attributes of gold and none of the defects, and will increasingly, quote, divert capital from risk assets, he declared, referencing the strong inflows into spot Bitcoin ETFs. The remarks come as Bitcoin surged past $72,000 per Bitcoin to score a new record high. Will it keep going? Senior Alpha analyst Logan Kane expects Bitcoin to top $100,000 shortly before or after the April halving event. but its current rally is likely capping. In terms of, and also, you've got a number of other cryptos that are starting to run because people are getting that FOMO, right? So you've got ETH that's been running, but you're getting all of the rest of them. People are like, oh, Doge is moving again. It's like literally everything is moving again. So we've got the crypto mania that is back here. My thing about all of the attributes of gold and none of the defects is that, like, gold, it's technically in limited supply, I guess, and all that. But the big thing is that once the institutions get their hold on it, they can create something out of nothing, just like they've done in the past, right? When yes, for precious metals, they aren't real precious metal. They're backed by, like, it's essentially fiat gold and fiat silver. They're not really backed by anything, but they still use that to manipulate price. And that is my fear with crypto, is that these institutions are in place and they've been in place for a long time for a reason. It's because these people are smart, right? They're like rats or roaches. They just survive and they're able to just slink their way into anything. And that's what I do end up thinking can happen here with Bitcoin and anything else, right? Oh, you come out with, oh, well, we've got these different Bitcoin ETFs that aren't actually based on Bitcoin. It's based on, Bitcoin Tether or Bitcoin this that's produced by the US government, but it's still valued as Bitcoin. And they can artificially manipulate the price of Bitcoin just like they can with silver and with gold. That is just my fear with things getting mainstream with crypto. You might say, hey, this can't happen because of XYZ, and that's cool, but it's just these people that are currently in power that have everyone running around for useless pieces of paper. They're very used to creating something out of nothing, and that thing having a big impact on daily life, right? So that's just my thing moving forward, is that, like, once it gets institutionalized, cool, there's institutional money behind it, but institutions also know how to bend the rules / create new rules, right? Throw 2 in the chat if you were here for that SLV manipulation a few years ago. JP Morgan just flooding the market with fiat silver, right? And all these ETFs that aren't backed by real silver, and it diluted the price of real silver. That's what I'm afraid about when it comes to cryptos. That they'll be like, oh, we've got all these crypto offshoot assets that influence the price of Bitcoin, and you can artificially manipulate it with that. Because banks did that with silver. Banks did it with silver, and they were charged, some millions, and it was really amounting to a slap on the wrist, and then they just kept it pushing. So we'll see kind of what ends up happening with that, how things develop. But for now, the halving event is coming up. Crypto has its time to shine, and I'm going to be the one to dim it. So by all means, shine, Bitcoin, shine. Automotive news, phones to EVs, getting in on the game. Xiaomi has announced the launch date of its first electric sedan, sending the company's Hong Kong listed shares soaring 11% on Tuesday. The firm, which invested over CNY 10 billion, I don't know what that means. Maybe that's just the currency, which is around $1.39 billion in the electric vehicle's initial R&D phase, aims to become one of the top 5 global automakers in the next 15 to 20 years. Quote, price-wise, this sporty vehicle is unlikely to disrupt the market in the budget segment like Xiaomi's smartphones, Seeking Alpha analyst Florian Mueller said, predicting that the EV's potential high price tag could be a challenge. The SU7 launch comes as automakers face muted EV demand in China and growing competition that has triggered a price war. In terms of today's markets, all this has changed because we got that inflation data, so I'll skip over that. Today's economic calendar, CPI was the biggest thing. We have PPI either tomorrow or Thursday. Got to double check on that. PPI Thursday. All right, so tomorrow, nothing scheduled. So we get a nice little break tomorrow from economic data. What else is happening? We'll wrap up here with our rapid fire stock news rundown. Oracle hints at partnership with tech titan NVIDIA. That would be great for Oracle. Boeing, ticker BA 787 plane nosedive, said to injure 50 passengers. Guys, are we ever going to hop one here and not hear, like, bad news about Boeing? Like, wow, what is going on here? It's like every other week, the door is flying out. Like, give yourself a chance for a breather. Like, this is crazy. EQT, ticker EQT, to buy Mountain Valley Pipeline owner Equitrans. Illumina agrees to Alcoa's $2.2 billion buyout bid, Biden's 2025 budget proposal calls for higher corporate taxes. When does it not? Disney slams destructive Nelson Peltz, a new proxy fight salvo. So Disney dealing with a lot of infighting, right? A lot of infighting happening now. British American Tobacco, ticker BTI, seeks to partially sell ITC stake. Tyson Foods, ticker TSN, to shut Iowa pork plant, impacting 12,000 jobs. And then ByteDance denies report of talks for TikTok sale. Trump weighs in. So ByteDance says they're not selling, right? They hit the Leo DiCaprio, I'm not leaving. And, the U.S. right now has in place that TikTok is getting banned if they don't sell their U.S. operations. So we're at a crossroads. We're at an impasse, but make sure to keep that on your radar. The fact that Meta, if TikTok gets banned, will run. Google, if TikTok gets banned, will run. So looking up whenever that vote is, I think is important. It's already passed the first level, and I forget what the next level is that it has to pass. But Biden already said if it does pass, he's going to write it into law. So we'll see. What happens with that, but just make sure that you're aware that, if you see Meta or Google starting to run, that is likely what's going on. There's some news that has surfaced, right, having to do with that, and we're seeing the ramifications of that. But great session, everybody. Congratulations to you for investing in yourself, and let's see what the market has. It's a beautiful day, March 12th, 2024. Let's execute, remain patient, and just close the gap between where we are and where we want to be. Let's have a great day, everybody. I'll see you back tomorrow morning for our next pre-market prep session. Have a good one.